Okay, welcome everyone to this webinar that deals with the information, providing as much information as hopefully needed for those of you, and thank you for your interest in the program called the Neuroscience Capacity Accelerator for Mental Health Program. This is the third edition of the program that IBRO is implementing with the generous support and in partnership with Wellcome. And we do have representatives from Wellcome attending this webinar. They will not be speaking today, but I just want to, of course, acknowledge the generous support and our very, very smooth and excellent partnership. The objectives for the webinar today, and perhaps I could have the next slide, are multiple and hopefully addressing some of the questions that you may have so that you will learn more, and this will help you address specific questions you may have perhaps for your circumstance. So we will have a few interventions by my colleagues, and I will introduce those later. And we will then also have an opportunity for all of you to ask questions. And please use the Q&A tab for that. And we will try to get as many questions answered during the webinar. And we will also have a Q&A session towards the end of today's webinar. And we will, in any case, try to provide answers to all your questions. So please do bring your questions forward. We want to start out today's session by providing you an overview of what the NCAMH Capacity Accelerator for Mental Health Program is, how you apply for the program, and how we go about reviewing what is it that we are interested in seeing and what is a successful application entail. We want to give you that sort of in the formal, this is the process for applications, but we're also giving you a reviewer perspective. And we are also, as this is, as I said, the third edition of the NCAMH project, we are also going to give you a perspective from one of our previous grantees that will speak, obviously, to that experience. And we're going to end, as I said, by having time allocated for a live Q&A session. I promise to say that today's webinar is recorded, it's live streamed and recorded for your information. And we hope, of course, that those that were not able, for time zone reasons or other reasons, were not able to attend today's webinar, that they would be able to see it and find it useful afterwards in their preparations of a project. I think that takes me to the introduction of my panelists. And my excellent co-panelists are my colleagues, Rebecca Hadid, who is the IBRO Director of Grants and Programs. We have Adriatic Bucciucci, who works with Becky as Grant and Programs Coordinator, also with IBRO. And then we have a past chair of our Latin American regional committee, Carolina Escobar Briones. Sorry, I said previous, she is actually the chair of our LAC committee. Sorry about that, Carolina. We are also joined by Jason Grant-Rolls, who is our lived experience expert and is working on behalf of Wellcome, helps us review from the perspective of inclusion of lived experience. You will hear a little bit more about that in our presentations. And finally, we have Makotso Lekoa, who is a past awardee of the program and can speak to that experience. I think in order of completeness, I just want to say my name is Lars Christensen, and I'm the executive director of IBRO. I'm really pleased to be here with you, and I'm very pleased to hand over to Becky as our first panelist to give a presentation.
Hello, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone that's joining us today. As Lars has already said, my name is Rebecca Hadid, and I'm very excited to be talking to you about the Neuroscience Capacity Accelerator for Mental Health, which is a joint initiative by the International Brain Research Organization, IBRO, and Wellcome. And so today I'm going to be talking you through the program's goals, the target audience, and the key components. So why neuroscience and mental health? So mental health conditions such as anxiety, depression, and psychosis are major global health challenges. Yet neuroscience research in these areas remains underfunded, especially in low and middle income countries. So by investing in neuroscience-driven approaches, we can bridge research gaps, we can improve mental health interventions, and drive innovative real-world solutions. So what is NCAM? So the program's primary goal is to advance neuroscience research on mental health in low and middle income countries by funding meaningful collaborative projects that advance our global understanding of anxiety, depression, and psychosis. So this is more than just research funding. NCAM focuses on capacity building by providing training, networking opportunities, and professional development to prepare grantees for future success. And by the end of the grant period, project teams will have strengthened their research collaborations, identified future funding avenues, and developed preliminary proposals for their ongoing research. A key aspect of NCAM is its emphasis on integrating lived experience perspectives in mental health research. And this is something that we actively promote throughout the program. And by the end of the grant period, awardees are expected to have gained a comprehensive understanding of the value of incorporating lived experience into their future projects. And so in this way, NCAM aims to create a sustainable foundation for neuroscience research in mental health and drive practical real-world impact. So who should apply? NCAM supports interdisciplinary teams working on early stage collaborative projects on anxiety, depression, and psychosis. And these funded projects should drive innovative approaches for early prediction and intervention in these areas. So whether you are part of an established research team or you're embarking on your first collaboration, this program really encourages diverse perspectives and collaboration between neuroscientists and healthcare professionals, educators, and patient advocacy groups to maximize research impact and real-world applicability. And the project leaders must be independent researchers based in or affiliated with LMICs, and the project leaders are responsible for project execution. Collaborators can be based anywhere in the world, but they should bring complementary skills, expertise, and resources to the proposed project. What's important is that the partnerships should be equal and active, ensuring a meaningful exchange of knowledge and resources. So each selected project receives up to $60,000 covering research-related expenses, excluding salaries and overhead costs. But what makes NCAM really special is that it goes beyond financial support by actively investing in grantees' professional development, ensuring that they gain the skills and the networks needed to advance their research and their careers. And through a blend of online and in-person workshops, grantees engage in targeted training sessions designed to maximize the impact of their work. Previous topics have included successful grant writing and securing future funding, effective science communication and public engagement, development of leadership skills, and integrating lived experience in research. And so this approach ensures that grantees are equipped to continue their research beyond NCAM, attract future funding, and drive advancements in mental health neuroscience. So here you can see the professional development activity timeline for the coming year. Grantees begin in September with a virtual meet and greet, which is really just the first opportunity for the cohort to connect, exchange ideas, and start building their networks. In October, grantees will participate in a multi-day in-person capacity building seminar, and this is going to take place in connection with the 39th ECMP Congress, which includes hands-on training and expert-led discussions. And then moving into 2027, our professional development activities continue with 2 virtual career development workshops, which are scheduled for February and March. And by May 2027, we will celebrate the end of the grant period and reflect on the achievements and the lessons learned throughout the program. And then finally, the NCAM program culminates at the IBRO World Congress in 2027 in South Africa, where all 3 cohorts will present their work, engage with the global neuroscience community, and explore future collaborations as well. So hopefully you can now see that NCAM is more than just a funding program, but it really drives neuroscience mental health research in LMICs. And by providing the resources and the training and the networking opportunities, we hope to build a sustainable research pipeline that drives real impact. And so with that, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Adriatic, who's going to walk you through the application process and the key requirements. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adriatic Bütülce, and I will walk you through the application process as well as the application review steps for the NCAM program. So without further ado, let's start with some more detailed information about the eligibility criteria for the program. So first, what projects are eligible to apply? In principle, and as mentioned, the NCAM program is open to researchers and clinicians working on projects that aim to enhance our understanding of anxiety, depression, or psychosis, and which aim to explore and identify new approaches for early prediction, stratification, or early intervention in these mental health issues. This program promotes collaborative research, and we are therefore looking for existing or emerging partnerships that bring together diverse expertise to a project. In order to be eligible for this program, the project leaders must first reside in and be affiliated with an institution in one of the low and middle income countries known as LMICs. And here on your right side, you can see and scan a QR code which directs you to the list of low and middle income countries according to the World Bank's list. Second, the project leaders must also hold a principal investigator status at their institution of affiliation. What's important here is that the project leader has the experience and support structures necessary to drive and lead the collaborative research project. Their role should allow them to independently apply for grants and manage independent funding as well. To be considered an eligible partnership or collaboration, we also require that the project involves at least one collaborator who comes from outside the project leader's institution. So the collaborator may be from any country in the world, be that a low and middle income country or a high income country, and they do not necessarily have to be researchers. They could also be psychologists, educators, representatives of patient organizations, etc., but must show that they have an expertise which is complementary to that of the project leaders in order to collaboratively deliver an impactful interdisciplinary project. However, please note that if the collaborator is also a researcher like the project leader, they will also then be asked to show that they hold the principal investigator status at their institution. To facilitate these collaborations, we have created the NCAM Collaboration Hub, which is an online platform where potential applicants can connect with one another, share ideas, and also find collaborators for their new projects. You can join this group, which has over 600 members now. You can join it by scanning the QR code that you see here or by simply searching for NCAM Collaboration Hub on LinkedIn. Now let's talk about the application steps. So first, make sure that you are aware of the key dates and deadlines. The applications are already open and will remain so until the 31st of March. So you have just over another month and a half to submit your applications. The review process will take place during the following months of April and May, and we will announce the results early in June. So your applications must be submitted through the IBRO grants portal, which is linked in the call for application, which you can find on our website or by simply scanning this QR code here. As said before during the webinar, we will share these recording of this webinar with you, so you'll be able to look at the QR codes again and scan them to go to the websites that might be helpful for you. Then let's talk about required documents and proposal elements. So to ensure that your application is competitive, you should already start thinking about it and preparing the following information that you'll be asked to provide in your applications. So first, professional details about yourself and your collaborators, including your roles and expertise. Then a project description, including a lay summary, which is more accessible to the wider public. You will also be asked to provide some team details, such as a list of members that will contribute to the project, how the grant would support you as teams, as well as a few words about the research culture within your research teams. Then you will be asked to note the grant amount that you would like to request, which can be up to $60,000, as mentioned previously, as well as provide a detailed breakdown of the costs that you'd like to cover with this grant amount. In the end, you will also be asked to provide the CVs of the project leader and the project collaborator or collaborators, if there is more than one, as well as confirmations of the principal investigator status at your institutions for the project leaders in all cases, but also for researcher collaborators. So if the collaborators are also researchers, as said previously, they will also be requested to provide proof of their principal investigator status at their institutions of affiliation. So this is more or less all the information that you will be asked to provide in the application. We really tried our best to keep it as concise as possible for you, while also ensuring that we receive all the relevant information based on which we can make well-informed evaluations and grantee selections. Once your application is submitted, it will undergo a thorough review process. The selection of grantees follows a two-stage process. So first, we have the evaluation committee. The first step is the review that will be conducted by this committee, which will assess the overall quality of the application. At this stage, each application will be evaluated by 4 reviewers, 2 of which are neuroscience experts from the IBRO regional committees, as well as 2 lived experience experts based on approved evaluation criteria, which you can find linked in the application, in the call for application, sorry. Carolina Escobar, who was a reviewer in this evaluation stage previously, will share her insider perspectives with you in just a moment. And then after this first stage, we have the second step, which is conducted by the Scientific Advisory Board, known as the SAB, which will conduct a final review of a short list of applications, which will rank high in the first stage of review. The SAB also consists of neuroscience and mental health experts, as well as lived experience advisors. This board will ultimately make the selection of grantees, which the IBRO Secretariat will announce very shortly after. Jason Grant-Rowells, who was a member of the SAB in the role of an LE advisor, lived experience advisor, will also speak in just a bit and give also some insider insights that come from his experience in the Scientific Advisory Board. But first, as mentioned, I would like to pass it over to Carolina, who was part of the first review stage in the NCAM 2024 program, and she will share some more details about her experience with that role. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adriatic. Well, today it is for me a pleasure to share with you my experience, as Adriatic has said, first as evaluator and lately as member of the Scientific Advisory Board for the selection of awardees of the NCAM program. I will be happy to provide some insights in how to elaborate a successful proposal based on the evaluation criteria that we will use as reviewers, and so that you can have an awarded application. So the selection process, as Adriatic just mentioned, has two stages in which evaluators will choose first the top-tier applications, and then will share us the list to the Scientific Advisory Board for the second stage in which we will select the final awardees. In previous years, we have received numerous applications and many very, very good. So this is a very difficult process. And therefore, for the evaluation, we will receive guidelines that contain the evaluation criteria, classified in different categories, aiming to unify the way that we will review the projects. These categories will be presented in your application format as separate sections that you need to fill in. My first advice is to be careful to read the indications for each section and to focus in including the specific details of each one of them. Do not repeat the same information in different sections. Rather, use the opportunity to provide additional details and to enrich as much as possible the description of your proposal. The application format will provide enough space for you to be explicit and clear about each one of the categories that you need to fill in. I will go through some of them and provide some comments about how to work on this. So for the rationale and potential for impact, it's very important. You will need to tell the reviewers why your proposal is relevant, whether it covers specific needs of your region, of your institution, or of a specific group in your country. Also, you may want to indicate whether you will cover specific gaps of general knowledge in the field all around the world. In previous years, we have received studies with different approaches. Some have been purely experimental and basic science, so preclinical. Others have been purely clinical or educative, and other applications are combined. Importantly, is that your proposal directly addresses specific aspects related with depression, anxiety, or psychosis, independently of the approach. It is important to emphasize that you are employing a neuroscience or behavioral approach to contribute to the understanding of the problem. Studies using only mathematical or only humanistic or only artistic approaches, not having a neuroscience or behavioral approach, will not comply with the relevant criteria that are necessary for this program. Successful projects are clear in indicating the aims of the project. They are clear in indicating how their study would provide strategies to intervene as early as possible to improve mental health. Projects that contain an experimental preclinical approach need to specify clearly the potential to translate their results to the population or to specific groups. Projects that are mixed also should state the interaction of the two approaches, how they will combine them in order to translate them into intervene the problem. The project plan and methodology use this section as utmost relevance because it informs the evaluators how the group involved in the project will reach their aims. Proposals should detail how and when they will perform the interventions, the target population, as well as if it is with experimental animals, how the animals will be useful to understand the problem. We need to know the study design, the data analysis, and how they will clearly adequate with the aims of your study. Everything needs to be very, very well coherent, each section with each other. In my previous experience as reviewer, successful studies combine several techniques provided by all the participants in the group. The multidisciplinary approach was well perceived. Even more, well-evaluated projects included state-of-the-art techniques or approaches. The participant groups have normally their own research lines, which represent the work of many years. However, importantly, for this project or for this program, the interventions should be limited and sufficient to provide results in 9 months. Do not give us all the information of a long year project. We need to see that you will be able to provide results in 9 months. Therefore, it is very clear, it's very important that you provide us a clear, organized timeline for the experimental design, and that you let the reviewers know whether the aims will be achieved in this specific interval. For this program, it is very important the collaboration among groups. As it has been already said, multidisciplinary projects are well seen. This collaboration with other groups may already exist for you. However, you may also want to establish new collaborations. What is important is that we know that this collaboration experience will give you a basis to continue in a long term. We expect that both participation groups provide their expertise, and the combination of the work will result in the final results. It is not well seen, it is a mistake that only one group will do all the work, and that the collaborating groups will only participate in seminars or will only have some small interactions with you. We would like to see that all the groups participating should provide their research expertise in the whole result of the study. This combined expertise is clearly a predictor of success. For the budget, you should elaborate and cover the expenses that are necessary to achieve the aims of this specific project. And this should be then sound with the methods and the techniques that you are suggesting. Do not include expenses to run other research lines of your group or to cover only travel costs for the participating groups. Moreover, check carefully which eligible cost can cover IBRO. So finally, the information that you provide will be used by the reviewers to elaborate a narrative and summary of your work. So once the evaluators have read your proposal, they will elaborate a narrative and a summary to hand it over to the scientific advisory board. Therefore, it is very important that you take care to describe very clear, with a clear language, all sections of your proposal, and to keep the congruency among all sections, so that then the last part, the selection stage, can be done with that information that you have provided. So it is important then to provide a clear information, and as much as you can give us also. So with this, I would like to finish telling you that I hope that this information was good for you, helpful, and I will remain for your questions. Now I want to hand the word to Dr. Jason Grant, who will explain to you better about the lived experience engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. Hello, everyone. As mentioned, so my name is Jason Grant Rolls, and I'm going to talk about a reviewer perspective from a lived experience side of things. So, as we know, lived experience really is the knowledge, insight, and expertise that comes from having a first-hand experience of mental health challenges. And this can either be as a patient or as a carer, and it could be happening currently, or it could have been happening in the past. In terms of how we involve lived experience in research projects, so these are just some ideas. So, you know, as we know, we have research participants, but we want to go kind of a step further than that, really. So some research projects will have advisory groups. So this is a group of people that will advise you on your project. Some people have collaborators, so, you know, collaborating on certain aspects of the project. Some people will include expert advisors. So these are people who can advise on maybe dissemination and engagement. And then the highest level really is co-applicants. And we're not suggesting that you have to do any of these things, but he's just giving you some ideas of the sorts of lived experience involvement within research projects. And when we talk about practically involving people with lived experience, we have to think about remuneration. So that could be consultancy fees, could be travel costs, could be covering expenses, could be covering other salary costs, or being named in publications, really. So some good examples, so people being really involved at multiple stages of the project. So that includes from the conception of the ideas, from the planning, from the design, through to delivery and dissemination of the project. And that lived experience perspectives are really represented across the project, including at leadership and governance roles as well. I'm not sure what's happened to the slides. So yeah, thank you. So in terms of making a good application, in essence, we're looking at how the research project could really have a lasting impact and be practical and be widely accepted in its findings. We would only review specific plans for lived experience if the applicant clearly includes them in their proposal. And as I mentioned earlier, there is no requirement to have lived experience involvement in the proposals. And if you do have lived experience involvement, you would not necessarily receive preferential treatment if included. So that's enough for me. That's just some acknowledgements and references. I'd like to pass on to my colleague, Matt Hoxo, who was a previous Grantee awardee, who will tell you about their experience. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm so glad to be here to really share with you our experience. So my name is Makgotso Lekgoa. I'm one of the previous grantees of the first ever cohort of the NCAM in 2024. and I'm also an associate prof at the Northwest University in South Africa. So I will be sharing with you my experience being part of the program, and also some tips of how we navigated the criteria to ensure that our proposal can meet the criteria that's been set by the funder. So as you can see in the name, the emphasis is the capacity accelerator. And this is what makes the NCAM unique. Why? Because it ensures that the project leads and the co-project leads are capacitated during the 9 months of the program. So the first anchor of that capacity accelerating activities was the Secretariat. The Secretariat was really instrumental to ensure that we had support, we had access to the funder, there was clarity in terms of the activities that would be upcoming, scheduling, everything was streamlined, and it made it easier for us to comply throughout the program, even beyond. As you can see, I'm still here and still keep in contact with the funders and also some of the previous co-leads in the cohort. And the second part is the professional development program, which had 2 aspects. One was virtual, as you saw Becky indicated earlier, and the other one was face-to-face. So in terms of the professional development that was virtual, IBRO did something that was quite fantastic. In the beginning, they ran few polls to sort of get to know the cohort and understand what are some of the gaps that they would want the professional development to answer. And based on that poll and that feedback that we gave as the 2024 cohort, they were able to design a series of virtual webinars that would answer the unique needs within our cohort, and most importantly, to give us support on the gaps that we had to become a much more established principal investigator. And for me, this was my first ever international grant rather, as a PI, and really different areas where I felt I needed capacity. The program really assisted me to upscale and to have better strength. And later on in the year, we had a face-to-face workshop. There's something unique about having face-to-face where everyone is in the room. The ability to network, just getting to know people in a much more relaxed setting, really created different conversations that allowed us to share our different experiences from low and middle income countries, but also to look for different opportunities of collaborations beyond the program. And also what the funder did very well was to ensure that within that workshop, it was all of us as the leads and the co-leads within that cohort. It was them as funders, even other stakeholders that are necessary for us to be successful in terms of our research career. So that was really very, very instrumental. And also to illustrate the power of that community, Peter was one of the speakers during the face-to-face workshop. He ended up collaborating with me and being part of my workshop within my research team, which strengthened skill capacity and also capacitated us in different aspects. So what are some of the tips in terms of how we approach the application process? I know as scientists, you have 100 ideas that you want to do in the world, but this one is a bit different. You need just one idea, one objective that you want to answer. Because as you have seen, it's only 9 months, which is a very, very short time. So once you have clarity on that one objective, who are the team members that you would like to assist you to be able to achieve it? And what would be the specific role of that team player? And as you mentioned, as you had earlier with my colleagues, they mentioned that integration and multidisciplinary skills put together is what will further strengthen your application. So put that in mind when you put a team together. And secondly, what is the nature of your collaboration? Is it a new collaborator or is it an existing collaboration that you want to strengthen ties with? Having the clarity of the objective will also help you define what type of collaboration you're looking into. And the most important that you have Carolina emphasized from a review perspective is how feasible is it in 6 to 9 months? So be very, very conscious of the feasibility. And last but not least is the impact. Beyond the 9 months, beyond the program, how will this strengthen your research capacity as a leader, as a research team, and most importantly, as a collaborative effort? So how did we ensure that we answered, or rather we aligned with the criteria that was set for us? First of all, I live in a low and middle income country, and my collaborator, Fabian, lives in Germany, which is a high income country. We had other local collaborators from different institutions, but most importantly, we incorporated the lived experience advisors who were part of the conceptualizing and also part of our project that we submitted. In our case, this was a new collaboration. And because it was a new collaboration, in order to achieve that one objective was that we ended up splitting our roles into 40% research that would give us enough pilot data, and 60% of that would be mobility to allow us to kickstart and also strengthen this new collaboration. And out of this, one of the things that came out of this collaboration is that we have managed to submit our first manuscript, which is under review currently. And also one of the master students that was affiliated to the group, during the program, she was able to attend the IBRO summer school in Zimbabwe at the time, which really strengthened her ability and exposed her to a bigger world of neuroscience. And she has also submitted her master's dissertation this past December. And last but not least, the entire team has worked on a concept node that we are using to try and access other collaborations as a strengthen the collaboration and also to build on. So this is part of the team. And I would like to thank IBRO and the Wellcome and even the NCAMH family for this opportunity to share a bit of our story. And hopefully through our stories, it will be the last nudge just for you to take this opportunity and work on your proposal. Thank you. And over to Lars.
Fabulous. Thank you very much all for your insightful presentations. And now it's really time for our Q&A. And I think we're going to have all the panelists coming up again. And I'm going to sort of head out with, we are trying to sort of keep up with the questions coming in, especially the very specific ones. But I already noted that a few are sort of a more general character, and I think could be of interest to discuss. So I really think perhaps Becky, could you address sort of the focus areas? How broadly are they defined? There are a few questions sort of around, you know, could this be considered eligible or not? And how broadly are we defining anxiety, psychosis, and depression focus?
Yes, so we define anxiety, depression, and psychosis very broadly. So this encompasses all types of anxiety and depressive disorders. So this could include obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, postpartum depression, for example, and all forms of psychotic disorders, whether that be schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, postpartum psychosis. It's very broad. So as long as you can demonstrate that your project proposal addresses one of these areas in a broad sense, then it would be eligible.
Great. Thank you very much, Becky. It's right. We do of course encourage that you sort of consider also using the terms and how whatever it is that you're proposing, how that actually relates to the focus of our project. So not letting our reviewing panel sort of guessing. I think that would be perhaps wrong. There's also a question about an erratic. Perhaps I'll just pass that to you. who it is that is involved in the capacity building activities.
Yes. So most of the activities that will be offered to the selected participants are exclusive to the project leaders and collaborators, but there's also a few that will be public and open for participation for also team members and anyone else interested in that particular topic. This includes a public webinar that is usually on a topic related to the program, to anxiety, psychosis, and depression, or international collaboration, or lived experience, or something like that, which is what we decide on together with grantees, the selected participants. There's that event, and there's also another special interest event, which is usually held in association with a big conference, a big meeting somewhere in a region in the world that's also open for participation by anyone interested in the topic.
Thank you, Adriatic. Yes, indeed. But obviously, we encourage that those project leaders, they take the chance of meeting outside of our training sessions, sharing all of the wealth of information that you get and insight that you get with your team members. So we can't sort of take on the role of having more participants than the ones that we are selecting through the project. There are also questions about, and I think Adriatic, again, just a brief follow-up question on how many collaborators per project, and can you submit more than one application? Or can you be part of more than one application?
So we're looking for collaborative teams. So there must be at least one collaborator, but there might be more than one. But as I said during my presentation, in the proposal, you have to show that the invited collaborators bring something of value, bring some complementary expertise to the collaboration. And it's not just a repetition of the expertise of the project leader, for example. Yeah, so you can invite more than one collaborator in the application. And sorry, what was the second question, Lars?
It was whether you can apply for more than one. Can you be part of more than one application?
Yes, that's I would say a hard no. So please be careful about that. You as a member or as a collaborator or as a project leader can only be included in one proposal. If one researcher or one other professional is included in more than one application, we will flag that and reach out back to you to make you to ask you to choose what application you want to be considered for.
Great. Thank you very much. A very clear answer. And we have some other specific questions that I think, Adriatic, you can also follow up on in the Q&A.
Sure.
I just want to hand over to Jason on the lived experience, because there are questions about, how do you really consider lived experience in sort of more fundamental oriented types of research that is not necessarily addressing a community of patients, if you will, and also should that necessarily be included in your application from the beginning?
Yeah, thank you, Lars. So in answer to this question, so I am not a basic scientist, and I know this question always comes up. I'm more kind of been involved in applied health research, but I think there's something about bringing people who are not thinking scientifically, who kind of think, they call it layman's terms, to kind of get sense check or kind of think about what are the sort of questions that you're trying to answer through these animal models. So you're building this fundamental knowledge, and hopefully you're trying to answer some question that relates to people. So even though you're not getting the lived experience people to do the scientific research, but you're getting them around to this, I would say, sense check, but also to think more deeply about the questions that you're trying to answer. And then think about probably the long-term impact of this science. Because I think, at least in the UK is where I'm from, we have this real issue at the moment with people not really trusting science. And usually it's because people are not involved in science. So it's very rarefied activity. So I think the more scientists can do in research is to just open up space have an open conversation about, what is it we're trying to explore here? What is it we're trying to do? And just get some different ideas around the table. So that's how I would see it, really.
Great, thank you very much. And perhaps there's also sort of, I think there's an interest in sort of the application stage and what is important here, and what is it that and Carolina, I'm asking you, what is it that that one should be careful of? But what are common reasons that applications are unsuccessful? Do you have sort of just a few general categories that you could mention?
I could give some examples. One is that the aims and timeline are too ambitious, and then we observe that this cannot be achieved in 9 months. It also happens that the different sections provide different ideas, different aims, and when we finish reading, we think, oh, this proposal, I did not understand what is exactly what they want to achieve, because it seems like they want to achieve many different things in the different sections. So there should be coherence. We also can identify sometimes that what they are proposing, the teams that participate are trying to do certain techniques or activities that they have no experience. And then there is a little bit the doubt whether they have the capacity to really achieve successfully the project after 9 months. Another problem is that the project falls out of neuroscience. As I stated, sometimes we find, for instance, mathematical models or artistic activities, but that do not really try to go, because they can be combined. You can combine a model and then try to apply that to neuroscience or to the specific problem. But if we feel that it does not have any neuroscience approach, then that can also fall out of the aims of the program. And finally, that the results can be translated. As Jason was saying, sometimes for basic science, it needs to be clearly stated maybe that they want to do some outreach activities, or somehow try to give to the general public a feeling of what the basic science can do for their well-being in this type of problems. And so these are some of the factors that are very evident for us that then make the project be unsuccessful.
Fabulous. Thank you, Carolina. And I really would sort of also try to get your perspective, Makoto, in here and say, what is it that you, I mean, obviously you have been through this program now, and there's been sort of a lag period from you ended and for you were involved, and perhaps you can speak to some of the downstream benefits that you've had of this in terms of your visibility, perhaps as a researcher for your research, and also perhaps the things that you have sort of that you are actively using. Could be lived experience, it could be some of the other capacity focused elements. Can you sort of summarize some of that?
I think now it's almost I can say 2 years, because our program started in January or February of 2024. And one of this, in terms of my profile as a PI, that has increased and strengthened. And also that makes it, what's the correct word? It gives you much more credibility when you want to apply for bigger grants, especially international grants. And what's been very, very interesting is, as I present some of our data, the feedback that we get within the audience really answers the lived experience integration. Because out of when people see what we are doing, and it starts the conversation, then they are saying, even though you're in preclinical level, this is what we would consider. And it's really allowed us to slightly shift our focus in terms of if the end users of our research at some point will benefit from this data, how do we need to structure our questions? How do we need to design our study designs? And you realize that, for example, people might be much more open to considering, in my case, we're doing plant-based research to look into how it can improve the outcomes of depression, or specifically. And they said they would consider that more as a preventative measure versus a treatment. And that means in terms of when we go back and we start applying for grants, our study design is shifting towards preventative and more neuroprotective versus later on over treatment. And we've also seen that as we design in towards new grants, we'll definitely integrate those people, whether they're psychologists, whether they're community members, whether they are teachers. Recently, there's a teacher that approached us and said in their school, they are seeing a lot of teenagers around that age really struggling with mental related elements. And we're starting to discuss how can we integrate and be able to create data that can support the challenges that they are. So that's one aspect where incorporating lived experience has become much more sustainable even beyond the funding period.
Thank you very much. Very wonderful and nice perspective there, from sort of real life implementation of the learned capacity. I know we're running out of time. I just want to ask Becky one question about the budgeting. There are some questions around the budget. Can you just spend 70%? This is a very specific question, but generally speaking, what can you spend we know we can't spend the budget on, which is sort of salaries and overhead, but can you say a little bit about that specific question and sort of broaden it out to a more general answer?
Yes, so the eligible costs, we have the research-related expenses. So this is your research materials, such as your equipment purchases, materials and consumables, any hardware, software, data storage and analysis tools as well. In terms of reimbursements for any research participants or lived experience advisors, that can also be part of the budget. Any collaborative travel associated with the grant. So, for example, if you're going to present your work at a conference or travel to meet each other at your different labs, that can be included as well. If you're going to run any outreach events or going to disseminate some research, so you could include publication fees, for example, or costs of these public engagement activities. What's important to mention, I answered this in the chat as well, that if you're selected for the project, that your travel, accommodation, and those expenses related to the in-person events that as part of the professional development program, we cover those costs independently, so they do not need to form part of your budget, but otherwise research materials, reimbursements, and travel.
Great. Thank you very much, Becky. Very much appreciated. We are at the top of the hour, and I want to, of course, first and foremost, thank my fellow panelists for your insight and for your presentations. And I want to obviously thank all of you webinar attendees, participants that are interested in our program. Thank you very much. And again, I also want to stress, I want to thank the Wellcome Trust for supporting us through this and continuing supporting us. And then I just want to say that I want to encourage all of you that are attending and those that are seeing this in a recorded format, please join us on the Collaboration Hub. There are many ways of engaging with people, reaching out, getting in touch with people that perhaps are interested in the same focus as you are and you did not know would be out there and interested in doing this project. We also have our website dedicated where you have FAQs that may answer your question. We will certainly try to answer the questions that are still remaining in the Q&A. Then I think I just want to, again, thank all of you and thank you for your time. And we look very much forward to receiving your applications. Thank you so much.